Okay, so I know a lot of you had some difficulties with last night's homework, so we're going to go over it in detail today. And helping us out today is Taylor. Give her a round of applause. All right. All right. Yeah, we don't mention last names. We don't mention last names. You're just Taylor O. Okay. Okay. So to start off, guys, the whole gist of this, the first thing that you really have to determine when you read through this is what's considered the part and what's considered the whole. And then when you read the question, you've also got to get a sense of, are they asking you for a percent, or are they asking you for a number of something, a number of items, in this case, a number of baseballs. So in reading the question, it says 5% of the little baseballs in the ball orchard say 2B, which is a double. If there's a total of 120 balls in the ball orchard, how many say 2B? Or when you see, as soon as you see how many are there that say this, they are asking for a number. They're not asking for a percent, which also makes sense because 5%, the percent is actually being given in the question. So they're asking for the number of baseballs that say 2B. When you go through it, your VIPs are your percent and your number 120. And I want you guys to get into the terminology, what's considered the part, what's considered the whole. Even if you don't even know how to set it up yet, if you have a percent, automatically take care of your percent first because you have a complete ratio. 5% is what over 100? And I'm going to go to Taylor.
5 over 100.
5 over 100. That ratio is done. What's the part? The top or the bottom?
The bottom.
The part.
Oh, the top.
And the whole?
The bottom.
Okay. I'm going to abbreviate it as P and W. Equals. Now here's where you have to make the decision. The 120. Here's the ball orchard. Does the 120 baseballs represent a part of what's in there, or is that everything in there?
Everything in there.
And that's the whole. That becomes the bottom. Okay? Everything's now set up, but when you now try to figure out what the part is, when you look at these two numbers here, it may be a little difficult for you to figure out 100 times what makes 120. So I'm going to show you, or Taylor's going to show you an easier way. She is going to reduce the fraction. Which becomes 1 over 20. Okay, now if you try to figure out how she did that, both the 5 and the 100 are divisible by 5. And she's now, what she's really done is she's found the value of that ratio. She's going to copy down the last part as is, equals blank over 120. And now when you look at 20 and 120, it's easier to figure out what you're multiplying by. She's going to write it down. Whatever you do to the bottom, you're going to do to the top. Therefore, 6 of those baseballs say double. Put it right there. Okay? Okay, number 2. Same thing, set up your part to whole ratio template, which you can abbreviate as P over W as long as you know what the P and the W stands for. VIPs are going to be 48. And look, ready? The other VIP is back up here because we are still dealing with the 120 total baseballs in the ball orchard. And you're going to need that piece to put it into your ratio template. All right, ready? 48.
For 120.
48 is the part. 120 is still the whole. That's all of the baseballs, of which 48 of them say single on it. Equals. We don't have a percentage, but we always have the bottom half of a percentage. Which is what?
100.
And we kind of had the same dilemma as we did before, is that you can't necessarily figure out that 120 divided by actually 1.2 will get you 100. That's not always easily seen. So what I want you to try to do is always try to reduce the fraction to simplest form, and then it becomes easier. Now, the reduction of this fraction, it takes a little bit of time if you don't see it right away. If both numbers are even, which they are, split them in half. What's half of 48?
24.
Half of 120.
60.
Both numbers are still even. Half of 24.
12.
Look at her go. Half of 60.
30.
They're still both even. We could still split it. Half of 12.
6.
Half of 30.
15.
Now, 6 is an even number, but 15 is not. But they are still both divisible by 3. Okay, so if you divide them both by 3, you wind up with the value of the ratio being 2 over 5. I made the mistake with you this morning. It's 2 over 5. It's going to change our percentage, but don't worry. I'll talk you through it. Okay. All we did, you confused? You good? All we did is we took our original fraction, 48 over 120, and we reduced it to 2/5. If you can do that, it becomes much easier trying to figure out what this number is. All right? And then, Matthew, I'll come back to the comment that you made here in 1 second. But let's just finish this out. 5 times what makes 100? Go ahead, Siege. And where we made our mistake, you can now fix 2 times 20 is?
40. 40.
And that's our percent. 40 over 100. 40% is the answer. Now, Matt said, can't we just divide both by 8? We certainly can. We can. That's still not going to give us a ratio in simplest form. Okay? If you divide them by 12, that's going to get you even further. That's going to wind up with 4 over 10. And then you can reduce it again. The truth is that they're both divisible by 24. Okay? You guys may not see that right away. That's why I suggest is if you have an even number on the top and the bottom, start splitting it in half. Because what I'm finding with you guys is your stumbling blocks have been how to reduce. Divisibility rules. It's something that we struggle with every single year, is reducing fractions and trying to figure out what number goes into what. I understand that. So I always say start off easy. If they're both even numbers, which 48 and 120 were, split them in half, divide them by 2, and keep downscaling it until you cannot reduce it any further. So 40% out of those 120 baseballs say single on it. We good? All right. I'm only going to show you the first 2, just how to set it up, and then I'll give you the answers for the last 2. Our VIPs is this, and then whatever it says for each individual animal group. Same thing, trying to get used to the terms part and whole is essential for trying to figure this out. So set it up as part over whole. It's always going to be part on top and whole on the bottom, okay? Our whole is what number? Look back at the word problem. Alexa. Yes. And that's going to be our whole for every group. So that something over 60 is never going to change. The part does change with each row. So if we do mammals first, that's 30 over 60. And since we're trying to find percent is the part over 100 being the whole. Same thing, we cannot see the relationship necessarily, except Dylan, of course, I know you can see it, right? 2.5? No. 1.66 repeating. But anyway, what you should do is take your 30 over 60 and reduce it to simplest form, and then it becomes magical. 30 over 60 reduces to what? I want you to do it. I want you to do it. I want you to know it. Go. It's 1 over 2. Now, I'll be honest with you. I think we talked about this with Dylan and Alexa and Murmur. We talked about this. 1/2 falls into, which I will eventually get to, what I consider a member of your fraction family. When I say it's a member of your fraction family, I expect between now and the end of the year, when you see a 1/2, you should automatically know that that is what percent. Just say it. 50%. It falls into your fraction family as a fraction that you should know the decimal equivalent, which is 0.5, and the percent equivalent, which is 50%. And there's others in the fraction families too, which we'll get to. But if you didn't know that, you can do it using TRF, realizing that the bottom and the top has a multiplicative value of 50, and you can figure it out that way. So that becomes 50%. I'll do reptiles and amphibians, and then I'm just going to give you the answers for the remaining two. The whole hasn't changed. It's still 60 total animals. 15 out of 60 is the part. Equals what we're trying to find over 100. Reduce 15/60ths. All right, Luke, go.
1/3.
No, not quite.
Oh, ooh, 3. No,
1 was your top. Your 1 was good.
yeah, 1 over 6.
Close. Let me go to trough. It's 1/4. 1/4 is another fraction that's in your fraction families, which I'm going to get to. You should automatically know. When I have 1/4, I have what percent? That is 25%. If you don't know it right now, that's okay. We can use it and figure it out through TRF. 4 times 25 makes 100. Therefore, 1 times 25 is 25 over 100, which is 25%. 12 over 60 reduces to 1/5. 1/5 happens to also be fraction families, which I will eventually discuss. What percent is 1/5? It is 20%. And birds winds up being 3 over 60, which reduces to 120, which is 5%. Absolutely. Say it again, Matthew. Matthew, realize if we take all of our percentages, it should add up to
95, not 95.
yes, and then but if you add all of them, it should be 100%, and it works out. Okay, Lex. Yep.
That's why I got it wrong. I was on the 1.
Read exercise 2 word problems, circle your VIPs like you normally do. When you get to, first of all, what's your VIPs? All right, Aileen, go. Yes. And what's your second VIP?
25%.
Yes. When you get to question 2A, you have to make your first important decision, and it's a little bit of a leap for you, but it's a very crucial decision. Would the amount that the shopper saved be considered the part, the whole, or the percent? When you have a savings of something, is that savings the part, the whole, or the percent? Well, what is it definitely not? Let's do that. Let's do elimination. What can we cross off the list? Well, I wasn't thinking a whole. I was thinking we could cross off the list. It's definitely not a percent, because the percent's here. Out of whole and part, when you have a savings of something, is that the part or is that the whole? Then, how many say part? Majority rules, and you're right, because it's a deduction. It's not the whole amount. It's part of the amount. So we now know that we're saving a part. We don't know how much that part is. That's what they're going to ask us to figure out. But we know now that since we're trying to find the part, when we set up our ratio template, that's going to be the piece that's missing in the second ratio. All right, let's continue. Now they ask us in B, how much are we going to save? In other words, they're asking you, what is this part worth? We're going to do it using TRF. Part over whole. As usual. Now it's a question is, can you plug everything in where it belongs so it's set up properly? What did I tell you about percent? Look back. We have a percent. What does that automatically become as a ratio? Really? We have a percent. What does it become as a ratio? That you've got to be able to do at this point. You've got to be able to take your 25% and know what ratio that is without even thinking. Lissa. You got it. 25 being my part, 100 being my whole. Hold off. The answer is yes, but we've got to see why it is we're able to do that. Okay. Our last VIP is our 32. Well, I've already clued you in that we're trying to find the part. So therefore, the 32 has to be the whole. It's the whole. That's the original price. That goes there. You're trying to find the part. That's the amount saved. Guess what we got to do 25 over to 100? Why don't you do that? Reduce it. It's going to make it easier. Finn, what'd you get? Well, I don't want the answer just yet. I want to know what 25 over 100 becomes reduced. Brett, you got an answer? It becomes 1/4. Beautiful. Now then, we'll take it from you. 4 times what makes 32? Therefore, 1 times 8 is? That is the amount saved. She saved $8. Is it a girl or a boy? It's a shopper. It's an it. How about this? I'll do it in passive voice, third person. The savings is $8. All right? Question for a ticket. If the savings is $8 and the original price is $32, what is it actually paying? You have your hand up. The original price was $32. It is saving $8. Therefore, what's the final sale price? Save it.
$24.
$24 is good. Get a ticket.
I helped him with my mind. So I get one. No, you did not. I helped him with my mind. Can I get one? Oh. Then he get away from the box.
If you do the double line diagram, the double line diagram will work best after you've reduced your fraction. When you've got 1/4, you divide your line up by fourths. If this is going to be percentage, then this is going to wind up being dollars. 0 to 100. If you break up your percentages by fourths, you wind up counting by 25s. These are percents. And if you break this up, it winds up being $0 with the whole price, the whole thing, the whole strip being 32. Now you've got to divide 32 equally 4 ways. So we've got to count by 4, 8, 12. We don't get there. We've got to count by 8. 8, 16, 24, 32. Go back to the problem, which is 25%, and we can figure out that 25% is $8. Like I said, if you want to do double line diagram, you can, but it works best after you've reduced your fraction. Whatever your ratio is, if you can reduce it to simplest form, that will tell you, whatever that bottom number is, tells you how you have to divide your double line diagram. But a pair of jeans was 30% off the original price. I know that's going to be key. The sale resulted in $24 discount. There's going to be a huge decision we have to make about what that 24 represents, but we'll get to it. Let's look at A though. Is the original price of the jeans considered the whole, the part, or the percent? Original price. Original price. That's your key. Whole, part, or percent? Not percent. Because it will tell you if it's percent. Not percent. It's the whole. Original price. That's the full amount of the price of those jeans. It's whole. Mallory, if the question asks you, does the 30 represent whole, part, or percent, then you could say percent because it says 30% up there. Otherwise, it's whole or part, and in this case, it's whole because that's the full amount of what the jeans cost. Okay. This is what we're trying to find, the original cost. Let's set it up using TRF. Part over whole. We have that percent. When you have a percent, you have an entire part to whole ratio. 30 over 100. Now you got to make your key decision. Where does the 24 go? Where's 24 go? Aaron, is that part or whole? 24. The sale resulted in a $24 discount. How many say part? How many say whole? I had like 2 total hands go up. See, that's why this becomes a leap for you. Because that decision decides whether everything from that point forward is going to be wrong or everything's going to be right. So I'm going to put this on pause, and I want you to think about it. And then I'm going to take a revote. Let me take a revote. The 24. How many say part? Good job. You are right. The whole, as you recall, is the original price. That's what we're trying to find. This is the unknown. Guess what? Can't figure this value out, so we've got to reduce the fraction. Reduce 30 over 100. 30 over 100. I'm going to Brittany. Yeah, 3/10. Good job. Now we can do it. Aileen. Try again. 3 times what makes 24? Mallory, help her out. It's 3 times 8. Mallory, 10 times 8. $80 is the original cost of the jeans. All right, let's just look back and recap what exactly that means. The original cost is $80, right? She goes to the store, she, it, and there's a 30% discount on an $80 pair of jeans, which we figured out. We didn't know that. Therefore, that's going to result in a $24 savings. Question for a ticket, what is she actually paying? Spence.
66.
Oh, good guess, but no, math error. Ed, it's $56. The original is $80, $24 off. Don't go anywhere because I got to change your homework. Homework, go to your agenda.